The issue of sexual harassment is consistently in the headlines as powerful men use that power to silence the women who speak up, but with threats or real actions of dismissal in the workplace, or simply letting their reports fall on deaf ears as the Old Boys Club comes in defense of its members and the women are left to fend for themselves. From the recent spotlight cast on corporates like Grant Thornton to campuses like Rhodes University, from boardrooms to lecture theatres to even our courts, these are the battlegrounds where women are waging what often feels like a losing struggle against a culture tolerant and even accepting of abuse. Well, we're joined now by Labour lawyer Natasha Moni from Moni Attorneys Incorporated to talk about the scourge of sexual harassment, particularly in the workplace. Natasha, good evening to you. I mean, it's a sad Women's Day that we are once again dealing with this issue, and it's really taken centre stage because of so many horror stories.
No, Bongani, I don't know whether we should celebrate this day or whether we should recommit to getting down to basics. The basics are this. If the likes of Mangalan Pillay, Mark Lamberti, Jose dos Santos, Russell Loebscher say things about women that are inappropriate and undignified, do they still remain the leaders? Do they still get the respect that they deserve? And my answer would be absolutely no. They should be put on the bottom of the rung. And a true man, a man who can command true respect from women and men alike, should be taking the helm of those big companies.
Natasha, it may seem like a fairly pedestrian question, but perhaps it needs to be asked. What is sexual harassment?
It's unwanted conduct of a sexual nature. And the unwanted conduct can be verbal, non-verbal, or physical. And it is derived in very many aspects, but it is a very subjective thing. So if I am fine with my boss giving me hugs every morning, then I'm not being sexually harassed. But if my colleague is uncomfortable with her boss giving her hugs in the morning, that would then constitute sexual harassment once she has told him to stop it.
So how pervasive is it?
It's so pervasive, it's everywhere. And everywhere I go, when I say to them, I'm a labour lawyer, and they come out, women come out and say, this is what's happened to me. This is how I got to where I am, or this is what happened. I spoke out, and this is what happened to me. So it's everywhere. It's so pervasive that it seems as if it's commonplace, and it seems that what we are learning from this is that women actually have to put up with it. And every time you don't put up with it, you get to a situation where your career is limited in some way. Yeah. And we have to try and reverse that.
I ask what it is, I ask how pervasive it is, as if we don't know, because the reality, of course, is that many powerful men have been able to, shall we say, have learned how to work the system that really protects predatory behavior, haven't they?
It is, and it's protected by a woman who sit underneath them and support these pervasive acts. For instance, Russell Loebscher smacks someone on the bum, and his spokesperson says, well, you know, he was just trying to hurry you up. Well, it's a condemnation of a sexual act, and that should never have been condoned by the highest office of the CEO of a company.
And quite often the burden of proof rests with the women. And I want to ask you, why is it that corporates don't find it easy to believe women who come forward? Why is it that they see complaints as a threat to the business?
Maybe because it is a misogynistic environment, maybe because they just don't have the emotional intelligence to handle it. I recently had a woman come to me. She had been raped by a colleague whom she had been warning the CEO about for weeks. And when she was able to testify against him in the disciplinary inquiry, he was dismissed. She also laid a criminal charge, which the CEO found unfair because he's a breadwinner. So it's, you just feel like you never win. And you just feel like you are continuously fighting this huge battle. The only thing that I can say, Bongani, is we need a collective. We need to stand up. And it's not only women that need to stand up together, but it's women must stop supporting men who are misogynists and who do this pervasive sexual harassment. And men should stand with their women. You have a wife or a partner. You have children. Maybe they're little girls. Maybe your children are going to marry girls. You have a mother. You have aunts. I mean, these are people that command your respect and your protection.
I talk about beating the system. I mean, the example you've given about a breadwinner, I'm aware of cases where, for example, the perpetrator deliberately sets up a scenario where it would appear that there's a kind of flirtation going on. And that's then the justification to say to a disciplinary hearing, but we were in a relationship. And really the point is no means no, even if they were married, for example.
Absolutely, and it happens all the time. There is one court case where a woman had broken up with her boyfriend. He then kidnapped her and raped her for a week, and they had worked in the same environment together. And the Labour Court had a lot to say with the magistrate, who gave him a 10,000 rand fine. This happens all the time. All I can say is that we need some sort of collective, and we need some sort of training. A comment was made this morning to me from a person who is in a very large corporate. This is Women's Month, and no one has come to her to say these are the rules of engagement in terms of sexual harassment and handling of sexual harassment. Also, we must be very aware of something that's called grooming. Your boss, you look up to your boss as a young female, and he's going to groom you, and he's going to show you how things are done in that organization. And sometimes that grooming is more horrifying than what you would expect your daughter to be experiencing from a man who is supposed to show you how to conduct yourself in the workplace.
I suppose, is it fair to say that something like racism, for example, we can't always look at this as a society, from the point of view of a case-by-case scenario, but we've really got to see the structures that underpin the support for this kind of thing and look at it holistically and try and dispel it from that point of view.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And that is the reason why whenever from the code of conduct onto how to handle sexual harassment, whenever something like this comes to the fore, what the code says is, one, you have to report it immediately, but two, take it outside. Take it to a professional attorney or to a psychologist, somebody outside of the organization who knows how to handle this and who will ensure the protection that the woman needs is going to be given.
All right. I think it's really going to require a longer discussion. Natasha Moni, thank you very much for your perspectives there. Natasha Moni, of course, as I say, is a Labour lawyer, really looking at how harassment works in the workplace. So often, people in human capital, for example, are aides of abuse and allies of abusers rather than coming to support those who come forward. Now, some news from the north of our border. Opposition leader Tendai Biti has appeared in a Zimbabwean court. Among the charges leveled against him is that he's been charged with inciting public violence and unlawfully declaring Nelson Chamisa of the MDC Alliance the winner of the 2018 Zimbabwe presidential election.